Feel your best and amplify your everyday look with Thrive Causemetics. Go to thrivecausemetics.com/shine26 for an exclusive offer of 20% off your first order. That's Thrive Causemetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/shine26.
Hey, Howard, I got hurt at work in the warehouse. My boss doesn't believe me.
Aiken Law has over 100 attorneys and staff ready to work for you. If you've been hurt on the job, in a car accident, or suffered a medical mistake, call 312-6-million.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine Podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis, James Fegan, and Josh Nelson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special edition episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and this is our 2026 midseason grades episode, as we'll be giving out our grades for White Sox hitters, starting pitchers, relievers, also grade manager Will Venable, and White Sox general manager Chris Getz. We also have a bonus topic as well that we'll be talking about during this episode. But before we give out our grades, here is White Sox manager Will Venable when asked about what he wants to see the team improve upon in the second half of this season.
Oh, we have a lot of things that we're working on, the things that are important on a daily basis for us, how we are attacking hitters and trying to get count leverage and maintain count leverage throughout games. Offensively, continuing to put ourselves in a position to make good swing decisions and drive the baseball, and then making plays defensively. So really all the same stuff we've been working on, and now the focus is a little bit different. We have the All-Star break in a couple weeks here, and really for us now, the focus is to not let that be a distraction and really focus on the present.
Now I'm joined by Sox Machine's beat reporter James Fegan and managing editor Jim Margulis. And hello, gentlemen. The first half of the Chicago White Sox in 2026 has been the best surprise possible for this team. And this is how far the White Sox have come from their preseason projections on Fangraphs. Before opening day, Fangraphs projected the White Sox to have a 68-94 record and a 1.2% chance of reaching the postseason. Now at the midseason point, Fangraphs is projecting the White Sox to finish 79-83, so 11 more wins, and their playoff chances have reached almost 35%. It's 34.9%. But if you just do the basic math when looking at MLB.com/standings, the White Sox are on pace to finish 85-77. And Jim Margulis, if the season were to end today, the Chicago White Sox would have the second seed in the American League postseason, a bye from the wild card, so we could watch the wild card games without worry and have home field advantage for the divisional series. I can't believe I'm saying this about the White Sox. That's how special the first half has been. And I don't know how else to sum it other than this is the best surprise possible. But do you have any way of summing up the first half of the Chicago White Sox this season, Jim?
I think the numbers do a pretty fair job in terms of the postseason probability and the White Sox being in first place and with the offense they're doing it with. My question would be is if they somehow get the bye, would you count that as the White Sox first postseason series victory since 2005? Getting to the second round, they've only done that once. And that was the year they won it all. So it does feel like it'd be breaking new ground, even though they technically didn't do anything to get there. But I still would think they'd have to take that.
I wouldn't count it because they didn't play anyone. But still, it would be a first in franchise history.
The key to the real reward of winning a playoff series is not advancing. It's humiliating and destroying the will of another team. If there's no vanquished foe, if there's no suffering, what have you really accomplished?
That is true.
You have made a whole city feel worse about themselves.
Well, again, as we record this midseason grades recap episode, only 4 teams in the American League have a winning record. So it's been a down year for the American League, but hey, somebody's got to have a winning record. Why not the White Sox? And they're still on pace to have a very strong 2026 season and a huge improvement in win total. Have an opportunity to win 20 plus more games. Almost did that last year as they won 19 more. And right now they're on pace to win 25 more from last year. So with our midseason grades, we asked you as well to participate. If you follow us on Twitter at Sox Machine, you can also follow me on Twitter at SoxMachine_Josh. We posted Twitter polls to get your guys' grades for the position groups that I'll be sharing as well. And we're going to be first handing out our midseason grades for the White Sox hitters. So James, I will start with you. What grade would you give White Sox hitters after the first half?
I'm in a weird position to give grades because I went to Montessori Elementary School, and we didn't really like get letter grades until like junior high, and then you went to CBS and you get like pure letter grades, and there's no nuances, there's no pluses or minuses to them. So like when I got like a 90%, like 90.00 in Spanish, to me that was the perfect grade because I had exerted no extra effort and still got the maximum outcome. Created weird efficiency goals. Notre Dame, very weird grades. Do I grade them on a scale? Do I grade them like the Dodgers? Because I feel like based on like any expectations or certain people anticipating like the worst outfield in franchise history, it seems like they're obviously an A in the sense that they could have multiple all-stars if they're an above average offense, that they're leading the division because of their offense, more or less, that they have on their infield alone, a successful draft and develop story, a successful marquee free agency signing, and a successful like raise the value of a post-pipe prospect acquired through your like internal development system, making a player better than he was with the Dodgers. That they have too many like A's we didn't think they could get to like weigh like, oh, Edgar Caro backed up in a big way, or
Sure,
haven't gotten what they thought out of Austin Hayes in some sort of scale that really is weighted like under any sane person would. Like Tristan Peters is giving him like the best Luis Roberts season that they've gotten in 3 years. All they could have wanted from Luis the last 2 years is from a guy who's got DFA by the Rays and you paid a couple $1,000 for, or whatever it was. They've kind of hit the A. It's an A. I don't like what would I be holding out? What would I want it to go right for it not to be an A? Like you didn't keep Evers and Barrera healthy. You get a B plus. Like there's no Luis Angel Acuna. If it's working, it's taken an awful while, and it still seems like maybe good bench player is kind of what you're hoping for at this point.
Yeah.
The minuses have been more than canceled out, I would argue.
Jim, what grade would you give the White Sox hitters?
I also had an A because I looked what I gave each of these units for the first quarter to make sure I wasn't just like pulling grades out my butt and had some kind of standards I was adhering to for the course of the season. I had them at B plus in the first quarter. And over the second quarter, so games like 41 through 81, we'll say, top 5 offense in terms of WRC plus, top 7 in terms of like Fangraphs wins above replacements. All of the components are pretty solid, and most of that's come without Munetaka Murakami, who was out like at game 57, I believe. So most of that second quarter, where they're a top 5 offense, is without the player who was underpinning seemingly the revolution of the first quarter. So you see everybody picking up the slack. You see like Randall Grichuk coming out of nowhere, and like Austin Hayes didn't quite work right away. So here's Randall Grichuk, and now you have that right-handed corner outfielder, the veteran that you're counting on, just by a different name and different look, but kind of the same purpose and same bracket, I suppose, in terms of just where he was in the free agent tier. So yeah, I mean, what more could you want given the circumstances, given the background, given just the extensive histories that we've been working with for the incumbents, and also just the track records of the newcomers that allowed them to be found by the White Sox, be it Peters or Grichuk or anybody else.
I also give the White Sox an A. When you look at the overall season, they still currently rank 5th after the first half when looking at weighted runs created plus on Fangraphs, which is very impressive. They're at 105 as a team. And the Dodgers still lead as far as Major League Baseball in that category as a team. But the fact that the White Sox are still a top 5 offense, Jim, I'm with you. The White Sox get an A on Twitter. 73% of our followers gave the White Sox hitters an A. So everyone's on the same page when it comes to the White Sox offense. It's a big reason why they're in the position that they are after the first half of this season.
Some days you just want to amplify your everyday look. Like when you want the look of false lashes without the extra effort, reach for Thrive Cosmetics Liquid Lash Volumizer Mascara. Or when you want all eyes on your smile, keep Empower Gloss Ultra Glossy Lip Serum in your bag. It's a burst of 24-hour hydration that smooths like a serum, shines like a gloss, and can be worn sheer or layered. You'll always look and feel your best with Thrive Cosmetics. Plus, every product is 100% vegan, cruelty-free, and made with clean, skin-loving ingredients that work with your skin, not against it. Amplify your everyday. Go to thrivecosmetics.com/shine26 for an exclusive offer of 20% off your first order. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/shine26.
Now to the starting pitchers. And we know this will be our 7th consecutive podcast that we mentioned this. Yes, the White Sox could use another starting pitcher before the trade deadline. But Jim, what grade would you give the first half White Sox with the starting pitchers?
Well, to follow up on the first quarter, I gave them a B. Feels like they're in that territory right now. It feels, and we have had this conversation about the depth and about, like, James just mentioned, or he talked about with Eric Fetty, just how carefully they've had to manage him to get like adequate results. Anthony Kay providing a reminder in his last outing of just how he could go wrong. And then Noah Schultz is coming back. Can he handle the 5th starter spot, or will that be in flux? And you see like all of the ways it can go wrong from here, to where, like, if I give him a B again, within a few weeks, that could look foolish. Now they need 2 starters at the deadline instead of 1. But if you look at it in terms of what they accomplished and just kind of seal it off, say that was first half, that was, what you could hope for the first 81 games. Nothing about that, what happens afterwards will change what their value was for the first 81 games. I still think they're in that B territory, because like Martin was great, Burke was good, which was, feels like a big development for them, especially with him stabilizing the last couple times out when you didn't necessarily think he might stick. Kay's been fine. Fetty's been useful for what they signed him for. So, like, as a unit, they're doing okay. I think they're punching above their weight. Now it's just a matter of the reinforcements. And the reinforcements were not what the White Sox thought they were going to be. But that doesn't seem like a problem for this exercise of grading what they did in the first half and what they did over the second quarter of the season.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jim, because this is like 2 different conversations when talking about the White Sox starting pitchers. One part of the conversation, what have they done in the first 81, 82 games of the season? And I'm with you. The White Sox starting pitchers get a B because of what we've seen Davis Martin accomplish, Anthony Kay, that big May that he had, and Sean Burke coming strong as of late. If there is a unit that I think we are all agreeing on that could start fading in the second half, it is the starting pitcher. So while we can say they get a letter grade B for the first half, that does not necessarily mean that all the ducks are lined up for them to still be a B unit in the second half. I do think that they do need to find some external help to help bolster the starting rotation. But I am with you. I give the White Sox a B after the first half. James, how about you? What grade would you give the White Sox starting pitchers?
I mean, I'm inclined to stay in the same tier with a B. I just want to mention how frustrated I am that a team leading the league in opener usage means that looking at like their starting pitching split performance and their bullpen split performance is like totally muddled samples. Like I can't get like beyond like, and naturally they're like both middle of the road and both like roughly the same like ERA in a way. Like, yeah, it's because it's the same pitchers just intermingle with each other. Of course it's the same thing. These samples are ruined. There's no information to draw upon. So
chocolate, your peanut butter in your chocolate.
Get the graded entirely on vibes, and just kind of makes this entirely sports radio segment in total. Yeah, Burke, like you've almost swapped. Like, I mean, I don't think anyone could have like the leap of Davis Martin. No one, you didn't expect any member of the rotation to necessarily perform that well over the first half. But it's almost like the swap you've made from like him stepping forward to like Shane Smith bottoming out where he struggled and got option and now is hurt. And you like, not to give him like a 0 for the season because obviously injury is unpreventable to a degree, but like you've gotten no real like value out of him, like grading for the first half. That said, like K, I think is like held serve as much as you could kind of hope for based on the signing. Like same for Fetty, like definitely some like ricketiness in terms of like evaluating them and like, is this a playoff starter? How would they get through a game like this? More as like it's more of like they look like they've been fine as far as like getting you to the finish line through the first half so far. Sean Burke taking like what's a more reasonable single year step up, but still a step up, I think is a positive in a rotation that I'd want to lean toward B. But like you expected this juncture of the year to feel a bit better about like what, you know, the second, like the follow-up was going to be. Like expected like Tanner McDougal and Hagen Smith and, you know, obviously Noah Schultz raring to go, and you know maybe Schultz can jump on that, but certainly having the knee flare up in the season is a little reason to be a little questioning of like, all right, what is it going to look like in the second half? The depth is just not quite built up to like where you thought you could be. Like, well, if we get a good half season out of K, a good half season out of Fetty, we're sitting pretty because we're going to have Drew Thorpe,
Sure, yeah,
Tanner McDougal, Hagen Smith, Jonathan Cannon, looking like, you know, re-earning a spot, something like that. Like you just haven't seen like this depth bubble up. Like does Mason Adams become that guy? I think certainly a realm where he's useful and provides like good starts down the stretch for the major league team, but also isn't like the high ceiling option who becomes a stalwart and like drives the bus of the rotation for a while. That's probably asking much of him. You know, he's obviously overperformed every step to get here, but to be reasonable, that's having him more than a spot starter depth rather than, you know, your top 100 prospects that you hope were gonna, you know, become impact guys down the stretch. Maybe that comes in the bullpen. Maybe that affects like the grade in the next section, but it's the same thing basically Jim is saying in a more rambling version of it's been a B based on like the results they've turned in, but you can see it teetering towards certain things need to step up to sustain that in the next quarter.
Well, the next unit is the White Sox relievers, the bullpen. And before we do that, the fan poll for starting pitchers, 57% of you also agree with us, giving the White Sox starting pitchers a B grade. For the relievers, I can start here. When you look at WAR, according to Fangraphs, for the White Sox relievers, middle of the pack. They rank 16th in Major League Baseball at 2 WAR. When you look at wins probability added, WPA, the White Sox currently rank as a unit for relievers 22nd in Major League Baseball. I'm going to give the White Sox relievers a C, even though Sean Newcomb's pitched really well and Grant Taylor at times has pitched really well. I'm still uneasy about Sir Anthony Dominguez. I'm still uneasy on some of the other arms that are part of the White Sox bullpen. I'm hoping that they do figure out the high leverage situation as the second half continues, especially as far as this next quarter of the season before the trade deadline. But this is the unit that I do circle that I think can get better with internal options, especially if the White Sox do decide to move Tanner McDougal, if he is healthy, into the bullpen. That could be a lot more velocity coming out of the White Sox bullpen as well. If Sir Anthony Dominguez gets himself back on track, then all of a sudden that back end of the bullpen for the White Sox looks a lot stronger. So while I am concerned about the starting pitching fading for the White Sox, I don't have that same concern on the whole fading as a unit from the White Sox relievers. But after the first half, I still give them a C. James, what grade would you give White Sox relievers?
I'd probably say B out of spite to your review, taking objection with calling Grant Taylor pitching sub 3 ERA with awesome peripherals as good at times. I think
yes, he is good at times. He would not have those numbers if he wasn't.
Bad like 3 outings for someone who's average like on pace for like 80 innings and striking out 35% of hitters. Like he's just generally been awesome, and this is what a very, very good relief season looks like. Sean Newcomb's been like 120% of what you could hoped, delivering like like a 3-win bullpen season. Like that's been an amazing signing. Like Bryan Hudson becoming a leverage guy, certainly the sort of thing you need to find yourself in a division race. Surprisingly, yeah, the back end's been shaky. Yeah, Jordan Hicks has been a roller coaster. Sir Anthony Dominguez has flown off saves, but they've been middle of the pack, and certainly in terms of like their expectations of like kind of just on the hunt for guys who look like viable big leaguers, that they have something that looks like just like a leverage core of a team that fights for a wild card spot caliber. Like, yeah, it needs to be upgraded at the deadline, but like it's obviously been like the bones of a decent bullpen. When they really like, as much as they spent something on it, like it wasn't like some huge spending spree or even like close to like 2022 levels of investment of like finding leverage relievers. I think it's been pretty good. Probably like B-, like given like some of the struggles, but the data you're drawing from also is Sean Burke and Eric Fetty starts, and removing some scoreless Grant Taylor openings, which is maybe why you're underrating him, his performance on the season. So yeah, like they're flawed. They need to add, and I think we've seen like a bunch of projects like not work out there in some way. But from what iffiness there is on like starting pitching reserves, like maybe some of those options that we're not quite sure could contribute to the rotation, like Hagen Smith or Dan McDougal, maybe those become assets of the bullpen where I feel like almost a little bit more they're better positioned to shuffle in some better options or some interesting guys down the stretch. Like, is there something to this Javier Arte upsurge? Maybe we can find out at some point. I never say never. What if we see Peyton Pellette like effectively on the bullpen?
Wickelman Gonzalez is on the way back.
Wickelman Gonzalez was looked really good and now is rehabbing. So I feel like maybe there's easier to squint and see some like options just because like the bar is lower for guys who could help and round out to a bullpen that looks more like 5 or 6 deep down the stretch than 3 or 4 deep and getting by the way they have been up to this point. So I want to be kind of I think they've made it work maybe more impressively than it looks, and obviously they've been bailed out by the offense, so like having lots of comebacks and stuff like that. But they're 4 games over. They're supposed to be like a 90-loss team. I think the bullpen's been okay.
All right, Jim, break the tie between James and I. What grade would you give the White Sox bullpen?
What if I split the difference? Which is I had them at C+ for the first quarter. Still kind of feels like a C+ bullpen just because of the Dominguez thing looming over everything, especially if Taylor goes 2 innings. What's the plan for the late innings if he and Newcomb are not available on, for the day following that day? And it is, just one of those things where you do have to navigate it, and their feelings can be hurt, tensions can arise. But I think the bullpen is taking shape. I think Trevor Richards was a pretty nifty pickup for somebody who can handle innings that aren't important, which matters when you have guys that you treasure in those high leverage situations like Taylor and Newcomb and Bryan Hudson. For anybody who can step in and preserve, even like when Tyler Davis is going good and the White Sox started liking him, like Trevor Richards picking up 2 innings in the game that's gotten away from him, preserves Tyler Davis, preserves 2 other pitchers from coming in, and that helps a lot for just keeping availability open. So I think they're above average. I think if you count C+ above average, I think technically they feel like they're just on the right side of mediocre. But yeah, just feels like they're not in their final form yet, and feels like they're 1 arm away, whether it's Dominguez riding the ship, even if he is more of a setup guy than a true closer, because Grant Taylor is more of that guy, or McDougal, Smith, Ben Peoples, another guy who's been killing in AAA for the entire year basically, and we'll see if the White Sox add him to the 40-man at any points. But they have options to flesh it out further, but it doesn't quite feel entirely settled yet to where there's that automatic sequence of, their plan A. And then if plan A has been worked hard the last couple of days, the plan B feels a little bit murky in a way that's maybe like a B bullpen doesn't. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
But I think we were all in agreement. This unit could be better with internal options. In the second half of this season, where in the starting pitching side, there's not many internal options the White Sox have left.
Yeah. I'll say I'm in agreement since that came up in the comments. Fred Durst coined agreements, and I always like that phrase just because like he came up with that and it seemed to have stuck. But yeah, they've been like they have enough to where you can keep swapping parts out and feel like they're not just flailing. It feels like they can make considered choices.
The fan poll on Twitter, 52% of you gave the White Sox relievers a C grade for the first half. Moving over to manager and general manager. We start with the manager, Will Venable. This is where I am very much against on how the fans voted for this on Twitter, and I'm starting to see on social media a little back and forth between White Sox fans. But Jim, I'll start with you. What grade would you give Will Venable after the first half?
Some days you want a little extra oomph to your usual look. Whether that's lashes for days with the viral Liquid Lash Extensions mascara or awakening your eyes with a lasting lift and soft color with the Brilliant Eye Brightener, Thrive Causemetics is your go-to when you want to amplify your everyday look. Whether you want a simple, just got to get out of the door routine or full glam, you'll always look and feel like the best version of yourself with Thrive Causemetics. Plus, every product is 100% vegan, cruelty-free, and made with clean, skin-loving ingredients that work with your skin, not against it. And for every product purchased, Thrive Causemetics donates to help communities thrive. So every time you use your favorite Thrive Causemetics product, you're helping communities you care about, too. Amplify your everyday. Go to thrivecosmetics.com/shine26 for an exclusive offer of 20% off your first order. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/shine26.
I would say an A, just for if they've won more games than you thought from the talent that they had entering the season, and they like playing for him. They're responding to a whole bunch of usages and deployments, in-game changes, etc. that were not part of the White Sox fabric, and also were not necessarily part of like why they came to the White Sox, or like in the case of like a Grichuk coming over because he was like the White Sox were the best option, but it wasn't because like he had his choice of 3 or 4 teams and thought the White Sox were the best fit for him. And integrating them well. Like Dominguez is the only kind of wart on this, and that's because like of his own doing of walking,
Right.
leadoff guys in late innings. So that's something that Dominguez has to settle more than Venable. But yeah, I mean, you can nitpick some of Venable's strategy, like the infield in the first inning. Still not a huge fan of that. I think they are maybe a little bit aggressive with ABS, or I wish the hitters had more say in ABS, a little bit more. But overall, like I think he does a good job of explaining his thought processes. I think there's like a consistent through line. I think the expectations have been conveyed well to the team and the roster, and integrating new players, integrating rookies, which I think can always be tricky for a manager. So yeah, I think based on it's kind of a results oriented assessment, but I think when the results have outpaced preseason expectations to this regard, and everybody's happy, and you see Mike Vassell in the dugout with a wand and a sorcerer's cap, and everybody's having a grand old time, then I think you have to say like, yeah, Venable's doing a great job of just letting this happen. Even if you don't give him credit for like being the guy responsible for it, he's not getting in the way, or he's not saying no, or he's not trying to impose his will. Like it's possible that like his case, like his will is taking this shape. And so, it's too hard for me to separate the results from the manager, especially like for half of a season sample size, and given what he had to work with last year, I don't think you can apply what he had last year to this year necessarily to say like it didn't work last year or work this year. I would take this year's results over last. I think last year's results were irrelevant based on the talent he had. To where it feels like an A until he starts like putting players in position to fail, which I don't think he has.
I am with you. This is where I disagree with the fan. The fan poll is 48% B. Now, 46% did vote A. The 6% of you that voted C I need to hear your reasons on why you would give Will Venable a C. If it is bullpen usage, again, to bring this up and why I'm right and James is wrong. Yes, the White Sox have 3 very good relievers who are having outstanding seasons. 5 of them kind of need to step up their game, but 4 of them are limited talent wise, but it will get better. I still think he's, doing well with the decision making in the bullpen, but you could disagree with me. That's fine. The bunting, I know that upsets a lot of you. The opener has been helping. Yeah, it'd be great if the White Sox had 5 guys that you could count on for 6 innings, but they just don't have that currently on hand. And the fact that we're talking about a first place White Sox team after the first half of the season, I don't know how this isn't unanimously an A, but it's Chicago sports, and some Chicago sports fans must always hate the coach no matter how well the team is performing. James, you get a chance to talk to Will Venable many times. What would you give him for a grade in the first half?
I guess to defend our fans, since I guess I'm just trying to play devil's advocate to you every time. Like, what I'm trying to say is, like, fans process the manager through tactics, like in-game decisions. Like, they're not. It's just it's so hard from a distance to calibrate like the other things he's doing. So that viewpoint, I obviously think is limited, but it's what's real and tangible from the go off of. So while from a communication standpoint, I appreciate and probably overrate his tactics just because like he's the best manager I've dealt with in terms of like communicating them and like demonstrating like a logical through line of like the philosophy behind all of them. Not necessarily because he has a philosophy behind all of them and the others didn't, but maybe the others like even just routed towards defensiveness when asked about it more, and it wasn't as clearly understood like how interconnected everything was. So I have a bias to be like, well, I usually know ahead of time, even if I don't agree why he's doing it, just from watching it. Like I feel like I was asking like in a game thread to readers in a defensive way, and maybe I thought they were overacting, but also was like curiously like I watch him and I've talked to him enough about this, so like I know why he made all this moves. So you were saying like question about his bullpen management today, like what's not clear? I think like it's like I've been watching this machine work for a bit, and like it does that during when this happens, it does like it's all just very like kind of laid out. So we're like, even when it doesn't work out or it's not something like is my gut instinct to do, I kind of like, well, I know they do that because they do that, and that kind of provides like, to me, it just limits to my degree to which like you always kind of have the biggest reactions to the thing you don't understand, and I so rarely like don't understand why he did something at all, and usually when I question it, it fits into place pretty quickly. That said, I would almost probably try to give my grade entirely removed out of like tactical question, just to be like, team plays hard for him, and year 10 it seems like that's kind of you enter the job with a lot of ideas like what's really going to matter manager wise. Is it like tactics that like make us pull our hair out, or is it not having any like scandals in the clubhouse or stuff like that, or what is it? It just seems like this team plays connected, they play hard, they model his identity, they just that he has buy-in, and that's not something that's just going to like be consistent year to year, let alone like his whole tenure. But like right now, in terms of evaluating this job of how he did in this first half, like the team plays balls out, he's getting the most out of them, because that's just become more clear. Like that's just job 1A of what he really needs to accomplish, especially as you get so many of these strategies being determined by like what the team's model says. His job is really to communicate to them and explain how that affects them and why that's going to do it. And I think for that, like there have been some blips here and there in terms of like guys cranky after opener usage, or obviously Sir Anthony, has talked about being miffed about like his role a little bit, and certainly surprised, and him being especially using the term surprise, like that reflects back on communication. So it's not a perfect grade. It's more just like the results and the way the players talk about the team in general indicate that he's got a pretty good passing grade on that for them and how they see him, even if we've seen like that it's not 100% based on some things that popped up. I think overall the product is like this is a team that bought in. This is a team that's like with the program they're doing, and they're getting the benefits of that in the results of just like how much everyone's like, yeah, this is my role in this team, and I believe in this team, and I'm going to do this. That's not automatic. You've seen some years without it around here, and might see some in the future, but certainly working right now.
If you had first half grades for Major League Baseball, Will Venable would be my American League Manager of the Year. So that's where I disagree with the 54% who did not give Will Venable an A, but hey, it's your guys' first half grade. At least I didn't have to put an F on any of these polls. That's a nice change of pace from the last few years that we've done this. And then the final grade to give out is Chris Getz and the White Sox front office. James, how would you grade Chris Getz and the front office so far after the first half?
So like, this is another tricky one. Like, if you're a fan viewpoint, what do you usually grade a GM on? It's probably off-season moves that he did to improve the team, or in-season moves that he did to improve the team, and how effective you are. And I think there's obviously some wins. K is a passing grade, at least for what you wanted out of him. Sean Newcomb's like this, big A. Sir Anthony Dominguez is probably C or lower right now. Probably really trending towards D in terms of like first half, like not a D for forever or never going to redeem himself, but in terms of what you got from the first half, certainly not good. I think there's swings from that, but is that why they're good? Is that why they're overperforming, or is Chris get this like evaluation based on like organizational health, or does he get credit for like everything Ryan Fuller has accomplished, like offensive side, or Derek Showman, because he brought these people in and he hired them and empowered them? Like the GM, more than like he's making individual evaluations, or he's like going to some secret workout where he sees Munetaka Murakami's like swing get demonstrated and decide like, aha, I see an all-star. Like that's not really how their evaluations work in this place. It's more of like, yeah, I think already at the time we could have said like he accurately assessed their risk analysis, where this is a move that people feel excited about and don't really like are willing to accept the downside of what better we're going to do. I think that rationale probably fit how the Sox fans felt about the team at the time, more than like, obviously it worked out as well as it possibly could, but it's more just like evidence of self-aware decisions. And I think you could give him credit for that down the line. So I don't know, should I just evaluate him on off-season moves? Or should I evaluate him towards like what he's done for the organization, or what strides they made? Is he a stand-in for the organization itself? It could be a very multi-layered question. But just in terms of like, what do we think this team was going to be? We wrote a preseason article about Sox Fest where he's saying, how about 19 more wins this year as like a way to pump up the crowd? And simultaneously, like, how sad is it that you're trying to sell him a 79 win season? And how sad is it that was decently ambitious? The next 19 win improvement is going to be harder than the first. So maybe he's being a little over ambitious to even say that. They're overperforming that. So you kind of have to be like, by any expectation we had going into the season, I think it's an A, just because they're the wins and losses. What does the standings say? They're better than we could have expected. So it seems like a 90 percentile outcome, and CPS, that's an A, even if it's 90.00.
How about you, Jim? What grade would you give Chris Getz to the White Sox front office after the first half?
It almost seems like pass fail is more of a better system for this, just because of the
thumbs down from Gladiator.
Yeah, the preseason outfield like did not shake out. Like Acuna was not good in center, and they thought he could play there. And Austin Hayes, the injuries that he had once again, and that's something that, if not could have been predicted, at least foreseen. And even I kind of did it reflexively. So like, here comes a calf injury, and then he strained his calf, and it's that was a risky bets for them to like anchor the outfield. And Jared Kelenic didn't work out, and Everson Pereira has been hurt, and those were the kind of the plan A for the outfield, the first wave. And yet like Sam Antonacci's been fine in left, and like the second coming of Tony Phillips, at least from one side of the plate, at the top of the order. And Tristan Peters has been a revelation. And then Braden Montgomery comes up. Now all of a sudden you have an outfield left to right. They feel like, yeah, that's an outfield. So does he get credit for the outfield that showed up halfway through it, is he kind of get credit for the outfield he tried to put together in the first place. I will say, like, the in-season moves that he's made in terms of timing of promotions, having a plan for usage, I think has been pretty sound. Like, you can think through it with him. We can think through Venable's ideas for how players should be used. Like, Braden Montgomery comes up, maybe could have waited a little bit more, but also, like, yeah, he's your best option for everyday play. You have a way to give him some runway. You can put him towards the bottom of the order. If it doesn't work out, we can maybe look at the deadline and see what you can do to offset it. But it gives you an idea of, it gives you information to work with when it comes to whether to put resources towards another outfielder. So sure, bring him up. Same thing with Jacob Gonzalez, like, perfect fit at first base. Like, maybe not defensively at first base because he didn't have much experience there. But in terms of, need a left-handed bat who has some plate discipline and maybe some power, he's filling the spot of a guy who's left-handed with plate discipline and power. That's the same shape. Put him in those, you don't expect him to be hit fourth every game. But yeah, I mean, like, that's a good spot for Jacob Gonzalez to come in. Like Sam Antonacci, left field is new to him pretty much, but otherwise he had earned it. And, he's played his way into more playing time and has stabilized left field. So I think the in-season solutions have, I think, been, and then Randall Grichuk, another one where just Reese McGuire didn't work out. Yeah, I didn't understand that signing. But Grichuk, yeah, that one worked out. So is it a case where you ding him for McGuire as much as you credit him for Grichuk? Or do you say, like, hey, good to go to that well again if it didn't work out the first time? So that's why I think, yeah, it's a case where putting a fine letter grade on it's a little tricky. So I'll just say easy pass.
Okay, that's fine. I'll accept that buyout. Fans, 67% of fans gave Chris Getz and the White Sox front office an A. I think his time is going to come on August 3rd. There's two big things coming for GMs. One, how do you handle the MLB draft now? Seeing that with the number 1 overall pick, you could be the first place Chicago White Sox with the number 1 overall pick. How do you handle that weekend with the MLB draft? And then August 3rd, trade deadline. How do you help this team? Like, his big moments are definitely coming, but I do approve, and I think you make really good points, Jim, with the in-season moves and being very anti-Rick Hahn of whatever. Let's give these rookies a try. Like, don't worry about service time. Let's not continue to shop on the waiver wire. Let's throw these guys into the fire and see what they can give us. And right now they haven't drowned. So it's been working out for Chris Getz and the White Sox.
One thing about that will be interesting about this deadline is this is probably the most synergistic manager GM pairing the White Sox have had at a deadline ever, where they've been adding in quite some time. Yes. Yeah, maybe ever. Like, ever. But in terms of, like, especially recently, in terms of the, Rick Renteria and Rick Hahn being at odds during the 2020 season, and then Tony La Russa not being Rick Hahn's choice, and then, Grifol being a dud, and then, Chris Getz not being interested in propping up Grifol if he was tasked with, like, carrying him over to a season where they had no hope. But it seems like they've been lockstep in terms of how much they support each other. So I am curious how that manifests itself going into the deadline and how much they push for it and say, if Renteria wanted a starting pitcher and Hahn didn't give it to him. If you have that situation again where Venable says, like, we could really use this, or I'm at wit's end trying to figure out this, and the price is maybe higher than Getz would like to pay ideally, like, how does that work? Open-ended question. Just don't know, because we've never seen a general manager and manager get along like this in quite some time. Maybe Robin Ventura, Kenny Williams, that kind of the start of that might have been like the last time they liked each other so much and they had open communication. But then again, like, Ventura is completely new to it, so he's he might have been deferential to where, like, he didn't have a say. Really curious to see how it works out.
Do you have any insight on that, James, as far as how the synergy could work between Getz and Venable heading to August 3rd?
Don't know what you mean, but
like, if Venable goes to Getz and says, we need a starting pitcher, Chris. Can you get me another starting pitcher?
I think they're already talking about that reality and what they need on a regular basis. I don't think it'd be gets his like monocle falls off in his office when Venable gives him this news. So like I think they already like communicate to a level where their needs are probably already pretty spoken, if that's what you mean.
Yeah.
At the same time, like Venable like kind of defers, or at least talks about like deferring to like what they're going to do and what the front office is going to look for, and they have this like whole acquisitions department that they use and like the model that they're targeting. So like it's not like you've seen a lot of acquisitions that are like, oh, that's Venable's guy that he wanted.
Sure.
They don't seem like they make that those acquisitions more. Maybe I don't know if they certainly have synergy. They certainly like endorse each other when they talk about it, but is that about like just the more industrialized way they go about adding players rather than like a power struggle or, you know, bringing up names and batting them around as their process? More than necessarily, I'd say like this is the synergy of like, I don't even know if like the mechanism is that fickle as far as like being dependent on their relationship. Like obviously if it goes bad, that could have hurt it, but they're not just like batting back and forth names between each other as much as like options are coming up and being considered by like a lot more model driven analysis now.
Yeah, I think maybe like one area could be like Braden Montgomery, who's been fine, but just in case of like, you know, depends how he looks at between now and the deadline. If like Venable says like, don't know if he's got it this year, and, you know, Getz or the front office saying, well, we think he can do X this year and we don't really want to spend resources that, you know, Montgomery could. Yeah, that's like one situation I think on the roster. I think starting pitching is glaringly obvious.
Yeah.
Taylor's good enough to handle, like, yeah, I think you don't have the typical closer conversation because like the White Sox don't necessarily need to get a closer from outside. They just need to handle the closer business within. Yeah, maybe with more finality if Dominguez continues to struggle. But yeah, maybe right field might be the one where, or the, you know, maybe if Peters regresses a little bit, like you have some weaknesses in the outfield a little bit to where you could maybe see add or not add being more of an open debate.
100% of the folks on social media gave Chris Getz an A. And then our bonus topic, most pressing need at the trade deadline, and fans, again, for the 7th consecutive podcast, yes, the White Sox need starting pitching help. 65% said that is the most pressing need for the White Sox before the trade deadline is starting pitching help. And we'll continue to keep an eye on that market. Sonny Gray looked really good for the Boston Red Sox on Sunday against the New York Yankees. He's been really strong this year. The Tigers have been playing a lot better. Does that mean Tarek Skubal is not out there in the trade market? Hopefully we get a little bit more clarity on who are the sellers and who are the teams that are just dipping their toe in the sellers market, so you have a better understanding of what the targets could be for the White Sox in the starting pitching front before the trade deadline. But again, it's a lot more fun to talk about the possibilities of the White Sox buying than the last 3 years, talking about who could the White Sox sell. So don't have to worry about that this season. And that in itself is a blessing. If you haven't subscribed to the Sox Machine podcast, you can subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. Check out our videos as well on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Sox Machine. Follow us on social media. We're on all the social media platforms at Sox Machine. You can follow James at JR Fegan. You can follow me at Sox Machine_Josh. And if you enjoy our work and want full access to all of our coverage of the Chicago White Sox, Major League Baseball, and the upcoming MLB draft, sign up to become a Sox Machine subscriber at soxmachine.com/products. The Sox Machine podcast is a production of soxmachine.com, here for all things Chicago White Sox baseball. Alongside James Fegan and Jim Margulis, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.
Some days you want a little extra oomph to your usual look. Whether that's lashes for days with the viral Liquid Lash Extensions mascara or awakening your eyes with a lasting lift and soft color with the Brilliant Eye Brightener, Thrive Causemetics is your go-to when you want to amplify your everyday look. Whether you want a simple, just got to get out of the door routine or full glam, you'll always look and feel like the best version of yourself with Thrive Causemetics. Plus, every product is 100% vegan, cruelty-free, and made with clean, skin-loving ingredients that work with your skin, not against it. And for every product purchased, Thrive Causemetics donates to help communities thrive. So every time you use your favorite Thrive Causemetics product, you're helping communities you care about too. Amplify your everyday. Go to thrivecosmetics.com/shine26 for an exclusive offer of 20% off your first order. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/shine26.